Starting a few minutes late. So there's just been this whole week. Alright. So, this time I managed to change the title and the description before going on. So that's actually why I was late. But as the title says, we're working on some cute fairies doing stuff. I keep on wanting to say a different word. A little bit more of a four-letter word. I mean, YouTube, it's already not marked for children. So, okay. Anyway, oh. Switch over to canvas here. So, this is my canvas on which I do characters. So I noticed last week that you really can't see what's going on my layers panel over here. I'm doing over here. I mean, I have a setup. You can see that. So this fairy is going to be watching the fall leaves. I don't know what that means. Sorry, I'm trying to do some troubleshooting. Unfortunately, the information I'm getting from different places is not helping me. Anyway. This is not helping. Anytime I turn away from one of the windows, it just tells me, it just starts spitting out errors at me. So that's not particularly helpful. What is going on? Literally every time I try to go to work, my internet or the stream quality like just dips. It's very frustrating. Literally cannot do that. Other people are working right now too. And that might be the reason why. Yeah, specifically on restarting the router. I don't know. But I've already spent like 12 minutes on this. I don't imagine that's very entertaining to watch me do troubleshooting. But it's also not very entertaining me just watching me frame skip all over the place either. So anyway. What was I doing? I was gonna draw a fairy, do a character art thing. So suddenly every part of my face itches. I don't remember what my first idea was, so I'm just gonna go ahead and draw the next idea. YouTube, stop sending me warning messages in bright yellow. It's very attention grabbing. My day has actually been very hectic. Um, so art imitates life, life imitates art, whichever direction it's actually going. I am as behind in my job as I am in my job. No, so I'm behind on art this week and last week, and it is a losing game trying to catch up. But the same is happening at work too, and I don't know that they're unrelated, but I also don't have enough information to say that one is causation of the other. But either way, so I'm behind in work, and I'm doing my level best to like catch up, but the work itself doesn't want to let me catch up either. So I'm a framer by day. So every time I finish what frames I have on my table, the following days are very regularly filled with customers who place multiple orders, which is great. Business is great. Having a job is great, but there are other things that I have other responsibilities that I can't get to because of that. And then those responsibilities continue to pile up as they continue, as other work comes in. And so it's just a losing game trying to catch up. I have no idea why she looks like this. And I don't exactly have a model for how she's supposed to look from the side. Oh, because none of these drawings does she have a nose. Her nose is a little dot. So you're never actually, shouldn't ever actually see her completely profile. Yes. So this is Opal. This is our first mascot, our mascot. Do people usually have more than one mascot? I don't know. Doesn't matter. We have more than one. But they take time to design and to figure out who they are. Specifically as to who they are part. So I'm working on another character. Her name is Pippin. And so with this last character sticker set, I put a little Easter egg in there for who necessarily catches it. Not that there's anything to catch. It's not like it's hidden. It's very obvious. But honestly, I put it in there more for my sisters than anybody. Okay, now got her face, sort of. I don't. Yeah, that feels better. And now her head's sitting too far off her shoulders. There we go. So I'm suddenly going to introduce a costume change. So why not? Hello, Scope. Welcome. Space so I know what I drew when I go to Inco. I don't know if I like that orientation. I'm going to be more swept back behind her. Oh, I keep on trying to change the shape of this bottom wing. now into some details I've not considered at all. And so the concept here is that she's relaxing in her home, with a nice warm drink, wearing comfy clothes, kind of gazing out the window, watching the fall leaves. So, what does her window look like? What does her house look like? Let's see. She's precocious. She's impatient. I want to say that I like to inject a lot of myself into a character, or I try to occupy the same kind of mental space. And so some of it's being able to occupy that space, some of it's calling on things you've seen before. Not for sure what a cottagecore window would look like. I mean, I imagine it'd be rustic, anachronistic. But here's the deal. I don't want it to look overly constructed, like it was put together by things that were found nearby. The framing specifically. The glass can be any number of things. Okay. So I found something that looks about right. Fieldstone. So make this look like a piece of board that was roughly hewn, not quite milled, just kind of carved into a shape. Okay. The other thing is I don't want now that we have a better idea of what the scope is, I'm going to reduce the sketch's size, better fit within this predetermined little block box that I used to help me size it. And so what is the inner support structure going to look like? I don't like this perfectly divided thing. I feel like we've covered where Opal's name came from, but I forget where I heard the advice, but not everyone's going to watch every video and to see where everything came from, nor should they be expected to. But Opal is named after an apple, primarily because the first sketch that I drew of her hair, her head looked kind of like an apple. especially with this little dooley deal sticking out of the top, out of her partner here. So an opal is a golden colored apple. I don't remember anything opal apple. Never even heard one before. I said, hey, how about we name them after fruit? And somehow that got more specific into being. I don't know if you even heard any of what I just said. Oh, looked like it just ended. Okay. It ended up on my phone. Okay. So for those that didn't get to hear it, Opal's named after an apple because her head shape is like an apple. Or I thought that her head looked like an apple. So I said to my sisters, hey, how about we name these fairies after apples or after fruit? But going off of the idea of naming them off of apples, my sisters went to work and found out a bunch of information about different types of apples. So growing up, I only knew of like Granny Smith and Delicious Red. So I had no idea that there were so many apples to draw from. There were going to be like there's going to be like a strawberry themed fairy, which honestly, I mean, I'm thinking about how I might integrate the fruit thing into it through a different angle. You know what? So OBS just told me that it disconnected and it's reconnecting. So I don't even know if I'm live anymore. Oh. And I won't know until everything's said and done, which is like the worst part. And I feel like that's mostly just because I don't have enough information. So as I mentioned previously, I'm not the only one who's using the internet. Maybe a week or two ago, the other person who's using the internet is now working from home. And so that might be impacting what's going on here. So I don't know how much that is my computer, how much of that is the internet, how much of that is the internet provider, or if it's just an off day for everybody and all facets of my life. Frustrating though it may be, I'm not particularly sweating it, because I get to draw something fun. And I kind of wish I could have recorded this in addition to going live, so then we could at least put up that. But my computer's not strong enough for that. I do have another computer. I don't know what it would take for me to be able to stream from that one, though. Something to look into. I mean, it's definitely not as powerful as the one I'm working off of, which is a little concerning. But it might be strong enough to be able to just handle a stream on its own. But anyway, so here we go. We have Opal sitting in front of a window with a bevy in her hand. Kind of lackadaisically staring out the window. Give a flat shelf to give the impression of the lower eyelid and give a little bit more of an angle on the back. And I think that's YouTube's telling me that I am not. Well, what helps with drawing them quickly is that I don't have to worry about backgrounds or placing them in the world, in a world. Also, it is my 100% my creation, at least in terms of what I'm drawing and source materials come from. While I am very largely responsible for Opal's design, I'm not responsible for her ideation. But I say that, and it's not like I did the input all on my own either, or that she was created in a vacuum. Let's finish framing out the face. Makes me feel accomplished. My favorite season is winter, but winter's nice and cool. I don't like being hot. Winter's nice and cool, so I can not have the AC on, not have a bunch of fans, and be perfectly comfortable with the temperature. I have no idea how the quality of the stream on playback is going to be. Or even if this will make it for VOD. What about the stream? And I'm not particularly concerned about like things being okay for the drawing. It's more concerned about like the conversation, and very specifically about the lack of conversation in the beginning. I don't even, with it being disconnected, I don't know that anything that I just said while it was disconnected even got through. I mean, reasonably, I don't imagine it would, since that's what I'm using to broadcast. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't have. I'm pretty sure it didn't. I don't know what I'll be working on next week because I don't know how the rest of the week and the weekend's going to go. However, I'm reasonably certain it will be kit art. At some point, I might have a better idea about what I will be doing during these shows so that I can invite you back to watch next week's presentation. Something that might entice you directly or be interesting to you specifically. That's what I'm wondering about. Like specifically the two instances where OBS didn't have enough bandwidth to be able to connect. And then that's where I think it's just gone. I think that'll just be gone. And that's unfortunate, but like I said, growing pains. Eventually, I'll be better at this. I'll have more information about what I need to do, what I can do to keep it from if I understand correctly, it'll probably be holiday related. The kit art that I work on next week. I should get into planning. I don't know that it would necessarily be decorative planning, just because it's requires so much time that I already don't have. But it's something that will allow me to keep up with the schedule. I do not even have the first iota about different planners available for me to use to even begin to answer or contemplate or ruminate about what kind of planner I would use. I mean, honestly, if anything, it'd probably be something that probably be something that I took the time to sit down and make a layout of my own, because my needs feel so specific and I have the ability to be able to do that. The only issue is, I guess, the form factor, the ability to be able to put pages into a thing, which is not necessarily what I want to do anyway. I had considered using a sketchbook as a planner and essentially drawing my layout, but that also requires time. So I don't. I do not know what a bullet planner is. I do imagine something more minimalistic might fit my needs. However, again, I don't know. I don't. I don't have enough information to be able to uh, comfortably say that that's what I would use or what I would do, or that's even what I'm looking for. And I haven't really sat down to talk about it with like my sisters who would know, or at least have a better idea than I do about what would actually fit my needs. So right now I am drawing, I am making a selection. Okay. Whoops, that's not gray. Let's actually color pick some grays. Whoops. What's going on here? I'm pressing the wrong buttons. That's what's going on. There we go. About to explode my own artwork. Anyway, so I'm putting down a flat layer of gray. This will help me be able to make selections later, and more specifically will allow me to give it the border it needs, put it into the program that she does the layout in, so that it can be cut up. She calls it a kiss, or the program calls it a kiss cut. So having all this stuff figured out and as a nice, easy, selectable block of stuff will help in creating that buffer that's needed for it. So I have all my tools set up to be anti-aliased, or have anti-alias turned off. So I'm selecting perfect pixels. So that's why you're going to see some jagged edges, like what you see on the ray that I'm currently drawing my selection over. Okay. So start with their skin. Now I'm going to start selecting areas that are going to be a particular color so I can fill them in. It can be. Once you're familiar enough with the tools, it becomes almost like second nature. And once it gets there, it begins hard to talk about it in a way that other people could understand. Yeah, no, I don't need to worry about that. I'll get that when I get the hair pink. Or I could just do the hair now. So the real significant part about this is that by using the paint bucket tool, when I drop it on a particular color, it's only going to fill in that area. So this selection right here extends into her eyelids as well as over her eye. But when I click on her eye, it's only going to cover over the white with the color. So that's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing with this mug. But the reason why I'm doing this particular setup specifically is because it has to do with the shading. So when I get to the point where I'm starting to add layers of shading, like the details in her hair, the cast shadows of her clothes and stuff, I need to be able to make selections because not every color shades the way it needs to. No, it seems dirty. That's too bright. There we go. What did I learn to use Photoshop? So I actually went to community college, where they taught me how to use a bunch of the Adobe products. And so I'd always had kind of an interest in them on my own. A little less saturated. There. Oh, that almost looks green. Of course it looks green. It's sitting right on top of a teal. There we go. So I learned in community college. go. I did go to school for digital art. And digital multimedia. So while I was at college, I also learned how to do video editing and video production, which was very helpful when before streaming was even a thing that I thought I was going to do. So my focus and attention might have been on something completely different if that was the case. Because the computer I'm working on is less than a year old. Not. So the computer I'm working on is absolutely the best computer I've ever worked on in terms of like something that I own and had purchased for myself, specifically for my needs. Because every other computer they were shooting for, but limitations being what they were, they couldn't exactly provide me with what I would absolutely need. Which is fine. I mean, beggars can't be choosers. If someone's in a weird place where I don't really want to upgrade, but I definitely need to. What was I even talking about? Though I learned video editing in school, as well as Photoshop, Illustrator. I learned a little bit of After Effects, but very quickly found that film was not exactly my thing. Thank you. It's nice when my creativity can be acknowledged. Oh, I don't even need to select that. Yeah. I like that. Give me my lasso tool. Whoops. I'm hitting the wrong. Reconnection successful. So I need to deselect all these things now. Because I threw on that gradient too early, I need to just fill the area I've selected. So I can't have the other things selected when I do it. Let's do the register stuff. That thing looks cool. So Okay, so assuming that you can hear me. Not red. Well, I guess that kind of eliminates the question. I was going to ask you what color the leaves should be, but if they can't be red because the falling leaves need to have some contrast against them, that means they need to be like kind of an orangish yellow. But I guess it can't be too yellow because of her vest and her eyes. Oh boy. Bright, fiery orange. So I have this gradient on the sky there. As I went ahead and jumped the gun, I should have laid in these flats before I did the gradient. When I use the bucket tool, it's just going to color in these little bands of color. So I need to use the fill tool to, whoa, so bright. Oh, hey, check that out. I did not select these leaves. But now that I'm over a flat color, I can just drop the color in there like that. This orange is going to be toned down. Because of atmospheric perspective, because she's looking through a window, all of this beyond the window is going to be toned down, desaturated, and lightened. That was the other thing I learned in film school when I was in school, was how light is affected through the lens of a camera. And so that's why some of the things I do look the way they do. I could point out specific examples, but I mean, without like the visual aid of them, it's a little hard to talk to that effect of atmospheric perspective without the illustration. But I mean, I'm working on it. I'm getting there now. There we go. Zoom right on in here. Make this line a little darker and more pronounced. So eyes look a little more even. And so there's the flat layer. I'm going to just draw a selection around the window here. And then, whoa, wrong layer. Unselect these other colors. And now when I press Q, it's going to show me what my selection is. And that's exactly what I want to see, is that everything beyond the window is selected. So this is the quick mask screen. Anything I do in here is going to be translated into a selection when I press Q again. And so anything represented in this transparent red and white is represented as a full reveal of whatever is beyond it. So what I do here, so if I take a soft airbrush, which has these fuzzy corners, then also captures a transparency. Okay, so if I take a hard brush that is going to fill in 100% of color and then paint over it, it captures that transparency. And so this black comes through as a transparent black over the white. And so that can be really helpful when you're trying to create something that kind of has a blend to it. I don't use it a whole lot because I usually just use straight solid colors. But I have used it in the past. It takes a lot of time though, and that's mostly why I don't use it all that often. Fill that in with black and get back to this window. So with all this selected, I'm going to bring up my hue and saturation panel, and I'm just going to drag the saturation down and then drag the brightness up a little. I feel like I sapped too much color out of it. 4 is not enough. So let's try -10 on the saturation. And let's drop the +19 on lightness down to 10. And then click on preview to see what this is. And so this is just a single pane of glass. I don't think I need to bring it down too much. So I think 10 on the saturation, or -10 on saturation, +10 on the lightness is right where I want it. You know, it is a lot. It is a lot to know, and it is a lot to try to remember. But like I said before, once it's in muscle memory, it just is. Once you've done it enough times, you know what I haven't done this whole time? I haven't pressed the good old Control-S. I haven't saved my documents since I opened. So if I lost the file, that's what I'd come back to. It's absolutely nothing. Good God, y'all. Anyway, so here's the flats. Normally, when I'm being my neurotic self, I'd go back in and fix these places where colors don't match up with the lines perfectly. But I'm actually digging it right now. So that's what we got for this one. I want to start working on the shading. So I'm going to duplicate the color layer and rename it without a capital S or a capital H. And I'm going to select all 3 of these and lock their transparencies. So anything that isn't already filled in, any pixel that isn't already filled in cannot be filled in anymore. So with this, if I go over here, I can't draw outside of the lines. So what I'm going to do with this shading layer is I'm going to fill it with 50% gray. And this is how I do the shading on all these other ones. So with 50% gray, I'm going to come over here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a layer style, or not a layer style. I'm going to use a blending mode on this layer. I'm going to use overlay. And what that means is that anything that's gray like it is right now is going to be completely transparent. You're going to see the color that comes through. Anything that's darker than that or lighter than that is going to shade or highlight based on the value of white or black that's in my hard inking brush selected. And let's just throw a little bit of shade under her chin here. A little bit into her ear. Whoa. And then I'm going to go up here into her hair. Drop some shade in there. Show you what I mean. That not everything shows up properly. And that's why I need the selection zones. Okay, so with her, excuse me, with her head kind of highlight or shaded, I'm going to change the blending mode to overlay, and bam, you got some shading on there. But like I said, her eyes are super bright. So I need to go in and select her eyes, go back to the shading layer. I'm going to bring up the levels panel, and I'm going to press Control-H to hide my selection, and I'm just going to crank the black all the way up. So now you could see the color of her eyes change to a much deeper golden color. Well, I'm going to bring back the midtones back up so it's back to that same bright color layer. And now the shading that I put into her eyes is visible. So I'm going to commit the changes, and I'm going to come back here to the shading layer, change it back to normal. So now you see that the gray that I put in her eyes is completely black, because that's the value that was needed to drop it to that level. And then putting it back to overlay, you get beautiful shading. So there's some values to this. There's some benefits to this style. There's some downsides as well. One of the downsides in particular. Oh, I still got my selection because I hit it. I couldn't see it. One of the biggest ones is the color change. So if you are sitting in bright sunlight, the shadows that you cast are going to have a blue tint to them because of the color temperature of the sun. The color temperature of the sun is being like 56K. 56K has a blue tint to it. And then you go into a building, you're lit up by lamps and incandescent bulbs. Those have something closer to like a 34, 36K color temperature, which is going to have a kind of an orange warm light to it. So your shadows in that environment are going to be kind of a red or brown. So with this, you don't really get that, but you can change it. So one of the other things is that sometimes I will use the marquee to figure out what my shades are. And then once I do that, I can select those layers and change the color of them to make the lighting appear any number of different ways. But that is a lot of work. And so these character stickers get printed out at such a small size that it wouldn't even show or really show up when it was printed. So there's not a whole lot of impetus to do that much work. Also, I have to draw like a bunch of these. Well, okay. I say I have to draw. I should be drawing a bunch of them. But often what ends up happening is I wait until the Monday before they're due to actually start on them. Not on purpose. Yeah, it's pretty neat. I mean, things can look really good flat, but then you put on a layer of shading, even just cell shading, like what I'm doing here, where things have a hard line instead of being rounded around their surface. It just adds so much depth to it. Okay. So for this area in the window, I'm going to go back and draw another selection around it because of that gradient that I put in there. Much too soon. Still shouldn't have put that in there. How the shadows are. And by using references, you can begin to build your own catalog of that kind of information. It's like, and then at that point, lighting can also play a huge role in the amount of tone. So like if I moved all these lights down and they were shining up on me, it almost becomes sinister because of a century of film coding where you watch a movie and the villain is lit from underneath. It just became shorthand for this guy is bad. Okay, so now everything in the window is selected. I'm going to hide my selection so that I'm not distracted by the thingamajigs. I'm going to resample the gray, and I'm going to pick a slightly darker gray, but not quite as dark as this one. Oh, I'm marking on the wrong layer. So it's not as dark. It is strangely red. Why are you red? There we go. Although it's a little too dark. Anyway, so I'm choosing a lighter green, and the stare is referring to when Malcolm McDowell has his eyes braced open to forcefully observe whatever it was that they were showing him. I like all sorts of spooks. Spooky is my jam. It's my honeygram. It's other stuff. I like being scared. Mostly because I'm not usually scared. Like it's hard to scare me. Okay, when I say that though, I'm excluding jump scares because that's that's just biological. You are biologically programmed to immediately jump away from that. If you don't jump at a jump scare, then your instincts are a little dull. I don't know. I mean, if you're prepared for a jump scare, there's a very likely chance you won't be scared by it. But if you weren't prepared and you don't jump, then yes, I'm going to say that your fight or flight instinct is not working properly. Because that is biological evolution that we have been programmed before birth to have that kind of response to the things. Anyway, so I put in my shading. Oh, you know what I need? I need a few highlights. So I'm gonna pick a color above the gray and then pick pure white, because I already know that that is what I'm going to need to get some shading in her hair. Oops. Start with the lighter gray